Do you agree that democracy is cringe?
If the populace is uneducated, yeah, sure. If you don't have people that are prepared to do critical thinking and are not prepared to interpret propaganda and their brain, I mean, yeah, then a democracy is only as strong as the population is able to critically think. So yeah,
We seem to be lacking that nowadays.
Do
you think that
very black pilled on the general person's ability to parse through propaganda?
Do you think that when people say Trump is a threat to democracy, that's a valid concern?
I do.
I guess I do too, except my thing is like we have this fetish for democracy and freedom here in this country.
Yes, we do.
And I think it's pathetic. First off, what we call democracy, the Electoral College, do we feel that's very democratic? If you get 50.1% of the votes in a state, all the other 49.9, it's as if they were not even cast.
I would
insane.
I would restructure that heavily. I would restructure the Electoral College.
A vote in Montana is like literally thousands times more relevant than a vote in California.
I'm super
Texas.
against that. Your vote shouldn't be worth more or less depending on where you live geographically. It's a fucked up system.
I think that these fundamentalists on MSNBC and CNN who are constantly like, he's a threat, he's an existential threat to democracy. It's like, first off, of course, there is no better system than democracy. I don't know what system you would replace it with. Monarchy? That's a joke. Right. Okay. So obviously democracy is the best thing. But this idea that like, we need to make sure that as many people can vote as possible and minimize all restrictions under all circumstances. No. The opposite. We should make it harder to vote. Okay, you should have to earn your right to vote. This goes back to our culture being weak and degenerate. It's like, I think this idea that like the day I've talked about this before and I'm going to make a whole video about it. The day I turn 18, I deserve, without lifting a goddamn finger, I deserve every single right that took thousands of years to get to this point where those rights even exist. It took your relative recent ancestors to fight and die for them. And now you think, the idea that anyone would even make it more difficult for me to vote by like, I don't know, requiring me to complete the same citizenship test that an immigrant has to take, or maybe requiring civil service of some kind, as they do in South Korea and Switzerland and Israel. This fetishism, I think that's an example of a weakness. It's like you have lived such an easy life that you are not aware of how thin the ice of civilization is that you skate upon that grants you those rights in the first place. And if you think that you do not have a responsibility to maintain that civilization, to maintain that society, to give back, to sacrifice some of your individuality in service of the collective, you're a degenerate. Tell me why I'm wrong.
There are two wolves inside of me. There's Christopher Hitchens and there's the Pope Francis. And there is part of me that believes what I just said, that I think most people, I'm not sure if most, a good chunk of people do not have the ability to critically think, and their vote is swayed by propaganda and bullshit. And I am very black-pilled on their ability to vote, and I question if that's a good thing. On the other hand, I think that the more that you means test people's ability to vote, you only select for people that are born into circumstances that just have more money and more access to things, and that will make the system worse. And I think that as soon as you turn 18, the first part of me is like, yeah, you're fucking stupid. Should you even be able to vote if you know nothing? But then I'm like, well, you live in the country. The country affects you. All the laws apply to you. You pay taxes. Your taxes go to our military. They go to the roads, the schools. So if you're being taxed by a system and you're affected by that system and you live inside of it, you should have a right to vote to affect and change that system. These two parts of me are in conflict, and I still work through that. But I always lean towards, I think that more democracy is better, because the more I believe you decentralize power as a broad principle, the better that is. That's why we have 3 branches of our government. Some say we have 4. And it's not just one branch or one dictator. The more you spread it out and the more checks and balances that there are, I think the better that is.
I don't know.
I think.
We have a broken fucking immigration system that hasn't been reformed in like 20 or 30 years or more. You know, it's interesting. It's important to conceptualize it this way. If I buy an iPhone, let's say an iPhone 10, which is what I have, and I'm like 10 years out of date or 5 years out of date, whatever I'm at. If I have an iPhone 10, and then I wait 30 years, I still have an iPhone 10. The software that I bought is as good or as bad as it was when I bought it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what our current immigration system is. People don't seem to realize. That's what our current immigration system is. People don't realize this. The immigration system we have now is literally operating by the rules and laws that were set into place like 40 years ago in 1980, some fucking bullshit. And it's like, oh, well, it's been 30 years, so we must have made incremental improvements. It's like, no, not fundamentally. You know, we might do email instead of fax or whatever. But like, it's the same broken system. And this massive country that we live in, I don't know. I'm under the position that we need accelerationism. We need to have a second constitutional convention. All right, all the enlightened centrists need to gather together. All right, Slavoj Žižek, Jordan Peterson, Eric Weinstein, Tristan Harris,
Dave Rubin.
Not Dave Rubin.
Toss him in the mix while you're at it.
Dave Rubin will be
convention of dorks.
No. We need a second constitutional convention.
I would be down for like a workers' bill of rights. I'd be down for that to go back to some New Deal shit. 100%. Bring that into the fold of the enlightened centrist movement. Some better workers' protection.
Nobody loves workers more than I do.
Okay. Hell yeah.
Okay.
Glad to hear it. I don't know shit about immigration. That's not something
that's
I'm
fair.
qualified to speak on at all.
That's fair.
Never studied it.
There's virtually nothing you're qualified to speak on. That's why I brought you here.